So we made a video a few weeks ago that was very low combat, live in a town, play Stardew Valley in Pathfinder, right? Of course there was a reason for it, and that reason was today on Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit by request, we are building the Santa Claus. So this is going to be a gigantic change of pace. Rather than take a great axe and cut through a bunch of people, we're going to help all of the Grinch's hearts grow 3 sizes. Anyway, if you're liking what you're seeing, remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell. Remember that Patreon gets you access to this build, a billion other builds, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. And it is the #1 way to help BDG keep doing what BDG is doing into 2022. I'm rambling for now, my friends. Let's dive in. So, Santa Claus, that dude in the big red hat. You know, this is normally the part of the video where I'm like, I could have gone so many different ways with this, and I really struggled to land on what I landed on. Imagine trying to do that for building Santa Claus. We went from everything from talking about the origins of Saint Nick. There were bits about Yule goats for a while. Did I want to segue this into some weird priest of Krampus? I basically always want to segue into a weird priest of Krampus, but that doesn't count. Even down to the edition. Ultimately, I chose Pathfinder 2nd edition because I wanted to put some subsystems of 2e to the test. Because what I landed on was Santa in the sort of sense that he was pitched to us as a child. Making a list, checking it twice, breaking and entering into your home to give you a bunch of presents and stuff. Which is in turn why I realized very quickly that to play this character, you would really need a campaign that would work out for it. You would need to be in the same town a lot of the time. You would need to be very vested and interested in that town's survival, and it spawned a whole ass video. Follow this card right here if you didn't see it. Can this build do things like in a more traditional Pathfinder game? Yeah, sure, definitely. But it definitely wants to have a lot of time at home, and a lot of its feats are oriented around the notion that we want to get to know people, we want to hide stuff from people, we want to get inside people's homes and leave things. But for our ancestry today, it's the Hillock Halfling. Why, you might ask? Well, when anyone uses medicine to treat your wounds, eat a snack to add your level to the hit points you get back. Wizard for the class today, diviner for the school, because sometimes Santa needs to scry, and spell blending for our thesis, because some days we're going to need more scrying spell slots than we will level 1 spells. Toy maker for the background. Unfortunately, the way crafting functions in this system, it will be very hard for you yourself to make every toy for every kid in every town without some GM fiat, which seems more than reasonable for this. Work with your GM if you can. Specialty crafting for a given crafting skill means that within that town you live in, having a business, making things, selling things, and then 2 weeks before Christmas teleporting away to go buy the stuff. Not a bad way to go. For our starting ability scores today, we're looking at a strength of 8, dexterity of 16, con of 10, int of 18, whiz of 12, shot of 12 for the class feats, not the archetype feats, those come later. And of course we're using free archetype, why wouldn't we be? Follow this card right up here if you need to know why. First up, conceal spell. For 1 action, if someone witnesses you casting a spell, you have to make a stealth check against their perception DCs. If it has verbal components, you must also make a deception check. Should these pass, they don't know you're doing magic. This will be incredibly useful when we're, again, breaking and entering into people's homes. I think a lot of the people we will be rolling against will have lower DCs. Remember, we're not trying to, break into the Rune Lord's house to prevent him from walking over Varizia. Unless this is some weird how Karzog stole Christmas narrative, which I don't hate. But by and large, I'm going to assume the average commoner, not hard to roll over. Silent spell comes next for a similar reason. For 1 action, your spell doesn't have verbal components, the dog doesn't hear you and doesn't start freaking out. Or like Dad who sleeps with his great axe under his pillow because he's very sure someone's going to break in. At level 6, we'll grab split slot. When you prep your spells for the day, you can choose 1 spell, at least 1 level lower than the highest level spell you can cast, and prep 2 spells in that slot. When you cast the spell from that slot, choose which one to cast. The unused spell dissipates. Because we've got the room, why not a little versatility? Next, we'll grab Advanced School Spell for our Diviner self to get Vigilant Eye or an extra Clairvoyance to see them when they're sleeping. Scroll Savant comes next. During your daily prep, you make 2 temporary scrolls that contain arcane spells from your spellbook. They must be of a different spell level. Both spells must be 2 or more levels lower than your highest level spell. or 3 with master, or 4 with legendary, or extra spell slots, TLDR. Next up is additional companion twice. Talk about that in just a sec. Superior bond comes next. You may drain your bonded item 1 additional time per day, but only to cast a spell 2 or more levels lower than the highest level wizard spell you have. Again, more spell, more good. Then infinite possibilities. To once during your daily prep, use a spell slot to hold the infinite potential of much magic. You can use the spell slot to cast any spell from your spellbook that's at least 2 levels lower than the slot you designate, because, again, more options, more good. Metamagic Mastery comes next, letting you use metamagic single actions as free actions, so you can be quiet or hide your magic faster. Now, the cool stuff comes on the archetype side. I struggled with this one real hard. If this was a first edition character, we'd have just dipped Paladin for it. For us, we will grab the Edgewatch Detective dedication to get us trained in society or thievery. You can use perception instead of survival to track. You gain experience tracker, blah, blah, blah. Next one, Sense Alignment. For 3 actions, the GM rolls a secret perception check, comparing the result against the target's deception DC. Again, remember, the average person that you're throwing this at probably does not have the highest deception DC in the world. If they do, that's enough of a red flag. If you just get nothing, that's probably the person you want to get to know better, or talk to your best friend, the ranger, investigator, druid, or whatever wisdom-based thing showed up. On a critical success, you ascertain the target's alignment. On a success, you get 1 aspect of their alignment. We probably just want to know where they sit on the good-evil axis. Failure gets you nothing. Critical failure is why we have Lucky Halfling. This is the most surefire way to pick up the alignment of someone, so you can indeed know who is on the naughty list, who is on the nice list. Again, if this were other iterations of Pathfinder, it would be very easy to just do this magically from inside the house. Technically, Sense Alignment has a 30-foot range. Work with your GM. See if scrying will let you cheat that. Otherwise, again, this is definitely a character who needs to be boots on the ground, wherever it is they are, shaking hands, getting to know people. You definitely have ulterior motives. Those ulterior motives are to make your town a better place. The main quest, I guess, of this character's arc is once per year we're going to hand out a bunch of gifts. The rest of the time it's just you're going to talk to people, you're going to learn their problems, help them with their problems, your relationship increases, the campaign writes itself. Hell, if you have the proclivities for it, any of the gods that want to redeem folks being your deity, you're gonna know who's the bad folks, or at least have a pretty good idea. Not a horrible story to tell. You go to a city where there are a lot of not so great people who have been exposed to not so great things, and you show them a better path and then positive reinforcement it with gifts. We're not worried about that right now. We'll take Balera's Interrogation next. For 3 actions, you focus your attention on a single creature within 30 feet. They have to will save against your perception DC. On a failure, they can't speak any deliberate and intentional lies. They take a -2 to deception, or a -4 on a crit fail. It lasts for 10 minutes as long as you're within 30 feet of them, and they're aware that you're doing this. New interrogations change things. This feat probably comes up in that thing I just described. I just need to get us out of this archetype so we can jump into the Beastmaster dedication. Because please believe we're going to have a sleigh, and please believe it won't have reindeer. Because reindeer aren't statted as animal companions, not even regular deer. That was very surprising to me. Additionally, there's not a great way at this time to give your animal companions permanent fly speeds if they did not already have this. And thus, it becomes very difficult to, have flying reindeer as often as we would need them without burning all of our spell slots to make this happen on the big night. We'll next take additional companion, once on the wizard side, twice on the archetype side, for a total of 3. In this case, I'm gonna say birds. The notion of strapping 4 birds to a sleigh as a means of propulsion is real weird, but remember, we're gonna be crafting a bunch of things. We can probably make something that looks really goddamn cool and isn't just a hot air balloon, but it's pulled by bald eagles. Though, admittedly, work with your GM, see if they're willing to brew up a small horse that is stats of the bird or some noise. Then we'll grab mature animal companion, then Indomitable on our incredible Beastmaster companion to turn all of these birds large. It's the only way to do so. Then Racer, a plus 10 foot status bonus to your fly speed, should be enough to pull this sleigh everywhere you want to go. And if it's not, just go get one of the random steampunk things, because we could have just done that, but I wanted to get as close to the sleigh and the reindeer flavor as we possibly could. Then here's a wild one. At level 20, we'll take the Vigilante dedication to really turn Santa the Halfling into its own identity. If someone attempts to discern your other identity, they gotta seek against your deception DC as if you were impersonating. It's considerably higher. Changing from one form to another takes a minute. It's gotta be within one step of your alignment. These two identities are completely distinct. It's just the most goddamn on-flavor thing we could have done, right? Skill feats are up to you. Crafting is important. Deception is important. Diplomacy is important. Stealth is important. Squeeze them in as you can. You'll know better than me depending on what exactly it is you're trying to do the other 364 days out of the year. For the ancestry feats, it dawns on me it's been so long since I've been adopted by halflings, but halfling luck, shared luck, guiding luck, incredible luck, keep the RNG in your favor, and because like nothing else we're choosing is an optimized choice, why not? Then Shadow Self, once per hour when you successfully use stealth to hide and become hidden from all your current foes. It's awkward that we're treating the children as enemies, but it is what it is. Or you use stealth to sneak and become undetected to all your current foes. You become invisible for a minute. Choose a location within 10 feet of you. Until your invisibility ends, you appear to be hidden in that location to anyone trying to find you as you quickly out the door and then back into the sleigh and on to the next house, right? For our key items, of course, we got to talk about the sleigh. It'll set you back 50 gold. It's pulled by 2 large creatures or 6 medium creatures. It's going to be a hot sec before we can pull this thing with our army of birds, but that's fine. You could probably just buy horses and that would work too. It's for the flavor. We need the flying sleigh, goddammit. Goggles of Night, definitely a staple for us. Bonuses to perception checks will be so huge because our perception won't be quite as cool as, everybody else's, and we don't even have so much as low light vision. We really need dark vision. And Pendant of the Occult lets you cast guidance on yourself, when you're making perception checks. For our general feats, Prescient Planner, Prescient Consumable, so you can always make sure you have the right toy for the right kid at the right time. Since you're in town constantly, the amount of times that this feat re-ups probably real nuts. Next, we'll take Hireling Manager to give our hirelings a +2 circumstance bonus to all skill checks, applied to both trained and untrained hirelings, with no effect on the cost. To briefly go over that, an unskilled hireling costs 1 silver per day, and rolls a d20 +0 on their skill modifiers. A skilled hireling sets you back 5 silver a day, but would then have a +6 mod. Not bad for breaking out a bunch of low-level things. In theory, you could eventually hire enough of Santa's elves to make all of the toys and things, but if you can't, this helps the store become more lucrative, so you can have the money, again, to just teleport wibbly-wobbly to go buy the things you need for those really hard-to-buy for tiny little babies in your town. Then Toughness, because why not? And lastly, Canny Acumen, for perception, and lastly for our spells. Oh man, there are a bunch of them. Of course we're a wizard. First up, name of the game, Scrying. It takes 10 minutes to cast. You target one creature. It works like clairvoyance, except you get a grainy image insufficient for teleport, an eye that manifests just above a target. Can you maybe sense alignment through this? Possibly. But you can also definitely watch people with this to, see them when they've been sleeping and know if they're awake doing crime, and then you can go stop that and then also put them on the naughty list. Dimension Door and Teleport will be huge on the big day to break and enter into people's homes. Or again, using teleport when you've made a bunch of money from your businesses that you've started, maybe even multiple. I'm the wrong guy to talk about how to make capitalism in the TTRPG. But imagine all the looks on the kids' faces when they find a gift from literally the other side of the world under their Christmas tree or setting equivalent. Invisibility likely only ever as a 2nd level spell because we're not using hostile actions. 10 minutes to move around where no one can see you. Again, should go a long way towards fooling low-level commoners as you're moving through their home. A really neat wombo combo of spells from Secrets of Magic Could you carry a bag of holding? Yeah, you totally could. Or you could just cast Magic Mailbox. Its range is touch. It takes an hour to cast. It targets 2 containers, each no larger than a bread box, lasting until your next daily prep. You make an interdimensional link between 2 containers, both of which must be capable of being closed in such a way that their contents are not visible. If both containers are left closed for 10 consecutive minutes, the contents of each one, totaling no more than 3 bulk of non-living, non-magical stuff, transport to the other location. Yes, I know, Bag of Holding works so much better for carrying all this crap on the sleigh, but it's really interesting in combination with sending a quick message of 25 words or fewer. Hey, by the way, I forgot Timmy's non-magical 3 bulk or less toy. Put it in the box, would you? And then on you go. I'm also assuming the bulk of toys are like light bulk. I don't know, maybe you got a bunch of kids in your town who really need the magical play place castle that's both magical and like turns into a castle, and so breaks both the bulk and the magical rules, in which case just get a damn Bag of Holding. Anyway, before I talk myself any farther out of that spell, next, a level 1 spell, Thoughtful Gift. You teleport 1 object of light or negligible bulk held in your hand to a target who's willing within 120 feet. The object appears instantly in the target's hand if they have a free hand, or at their feet if they don't. The target knows what object you're attempting to send them. If the target is unconscious or refuses to accept, or the spell would teleport a creature, the spell fails. Heightened to 3rd, it goes to 500 feet. Heightened to 5th, the bulk increases to 1, and for 3 actions you could shoot something a mile. This is a really interesting spell in normal games where it's like, oh shit, the monk needs a potion. Grab potion, Thoughtful Gift the potion. It's 1 action to just like yoink the thing across. It's also really cool and on flavor. Be like, oh, you're a little, what is a dwarven name? Oh, you're the first son of Kelzod the Mighty, right? You wanted digs through bag. This replica hand axe of light or negligible bulk, and snap your fingers, it goes to them, and they're happy, and you've made someone's day, and it's the most goddamn wholesome role-playing I've ever seen in my life. What more do you want? Dark Vision on the spell list before we can afford the goggles of Dark Vision. Gonna be really useful. Again, we don't even have low light vision. If you've got the minute to cast on someone's roof, Rewinding Step. For 10 minutes, the space and where you cast the spell becomes a temporal anchor. While you're within 500 feet of that space, you can spend a single action that has the concentrate trait to warp back to that space, at which point the spell ends. This eventually scales up to a mile. Really, it's just a quick get out of house free card. Impeccable Flow eventually will scale up to a +3 status bonus on perception checks, saving throws, and skill checks for a minute. If you crit fail, it gets bad. Again, this is just making sure that the person that we're giving the gifts to is of the proper alignment to receive the gifts. This character could also be really, really terrible. Having the power of who's good and who's not. There's a fine line between Santa Claus and light Yagami, and I've only just now realized that at 30 years old. Knock, of course, for when you don't want to burn through teleportation spells, don't have the ability to quite thievery that lock. For 2 actions, get a +4 status bonus to any creature that tries to open the target door, lock, or container with a thievery, not athletics. Don't kick the door down with your 8th strength, have an ass. You're gonna hurt yourself. You can then attempt a thievery check to open the target as part of casting, and you add your level even if you're untrained. We're probably at least trained. Then lastly, Featherfall, because don't let the Santa Claus happen to you. But, again, this character obviously needs a very special set of circumstances for Santa to thrive. A smaller community will be easier, a larger community will require the entire party to opt in, which could be a fun adventure in and of itself, and will certainly spawn a lot of really interesting roleplay. But the way I've built it is you live in a community of like about the size of Sandpoint in Varizia. You know everybody on a first name basis. You are a pillar of the community who owns a store. That store sells whatever to make money to finance things like this. Eventually, if you get enough money for a lot of hirelings, you could bust out a bunch of toys, though work with your GM, because as it stands now, we can make a bunch of balls or a bunch of like clockwork cars, and that's kind of all we have going for us right now. These should be an alright baseline for cost though. But if it's not that, if your party wants to play, say, Age of Ashes. And in between books of the adventure, you're back outside Breach Hill and the holidays are coming and you want to be able to pull this off. You are still a prepared arcane spellcaster who can just be bought scrolls of staple spells to add to the spellbook and prep when they need them. You still have animal companions that can flyby attack. You still can be the person with the vehicle that's moving the party. Hell, even if you're just sitting around invisible, throwing around Diviner's Sight just to give the fighter some bets hedged when he's swinging his great axe around, it seems really good, and no one is going to not like having that with them. This build definitely can have its Christmas cookies and eat it too. Whether you're going on a more traditional adventure or staying at home, it really shines. It does. But that's all the time I have for today. What do y'all think? Have we played something like this? How are your Christmas one-shots shaping up? Let me know down in the comments. If the holidays are important to you, happy holidays. If the holidays are not important to you, hopefully you at least have the day off work. In any case, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.